Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to have you today. And I want to welcome you to Recovery in Action. And I have a very special guest today that I'm so excited about, Larry Blue. We met a lot in the last couple months, and he is actually the new executive director of INR, and what that stands for is Indiana Affiliation of Recovery Residences. And now that the House of Ruth is actually in the INR certification, it has opened up so many doors, and Larry is here today to talk to us about the different things that he has been through and the reason why that he has chose the profession of helping people in recovery. And first of all, I just want to welcome you for being here, and I want to let you know that there is hope in recovery, and Larry is a prime example of that. And we just want you to know that there is help and hope, and a lot of places are opening in the state of Indiana and across the nation. And he is so active in so many different things. He's working with senators, he's working with legislature, getting different things implemented to help people in recovery and to make sure that the path is made for all of us to be able to have productive and stable lives. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Larry Blue. It's so good to have you today, Larry.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming this wintry day. But I'm glad the snow didn't keep you away. But I just want to we were talking before the show that you've been on the 700 Club 4 times.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that you have a lot of history, and you were actually in active addiction. You've had several arrests and felonies, and just to show people out here that are watching that there is hope. And just as Anita was saying in the office, you know, you don't look like someone that would be in recovery, but that is how, you know, that lifestyles change, and that's how people become different people through recovery. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, I've been on the 700 Club 4 times. If you want to Google my name, Larry Blue on the 700 Club, and see a 7-minute video there that illustrates a little bit better story about my childhood, my background. But I'm a survivor of childhood abuse. I later became a very active alcoholic and addict, including gambling addiction, sex addiction. That all started when I was 12 years old, and then progressed even more throughout my life, and my career lifestyle all fed into my addictive behavior. And so everything was just this big, ugly mess of addiction. And then I was in and out of the military. Periods of time, I would just shift my addictive thoughts to other substances and tell myself at least I wasn't drinking as much, or at least I wasn't using as many drugs anymore. And it was really until I came to the realization that addiction is an illness, it's a disease, and I started to treat that root behavior, then I wasn't going to get better. My treatment came in a level 4 prison after 9 arrests and 7 felonies, and I submitted finally to letting God take control of my life. And ever since that submission has taken place 16 years ago, after being atheist all my life, it's been amazing. It's been nothing short of miraculous of what God can do with an old addict like me. So please Google that information. I didn't want to take up time today. I wanted to talk about more of the important things about what's going on with the housing situation in the state and some of the legislation that's going on in the state that people can get involved in to help these recovery homes. And so that's really what I wanted to take the time today to talk about.
Absolutely. And you know, that's the biggest thing. There are different programs and there's different institutions, but a lot of people are finding out that recovery homes are right now being very much utilized because it is lower cost for one thing. And then just the home atmosphere. I know a lot of the women that has come into the program at the House of Ruth, in addiction, especially when you have generational, they're so familiar to the dysfunction of homes. And when they come into a home with structure and they come into a home, you know, of women in recovery, there's such a different atmosphere in those, and that's like at the House of Ruth. That's one thing that I take pride in, is I try to make it as much of a home as possible, and I think that helps people in their recovery to have that
Yeah.
that atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, like myself, might start to consider their addictive behavior to be normal and not know really what a good normal for a lifestyle is. And you're absolutely right. So when they come to a place that's got services available, like House of Ruth, setting that example, showing them that there's hope and there is a good normal to live at,
Yeah.
is such an important aspect of starting their recovery.
Now, whenever you got into this, did you, like in your recovery, when you first got out of prison, is that when you started the road to your recovery, or did you go into a home? Did you kind of tell us what got you going down this path of what you're doing today?
That's a good question. There were just not that many services available 16 years ago like there are today. And so I had relapsed multiple times throughout my arrest record and my history. And so after that final last relapse, I just really wanted to reach out to anything that was good. I attended many different types of church services because I'd known nothing about God for so many years. So I was going to every kind of church service. I was going to every kind of anonymous group and anything that I thought was going to be good for me. And so that's what I occupied my time with at first. And then volunteering in many of the community organizations also helped to keep my time occupied as well.
That's one thing that we do, and I think that is kind of giving back to the community. I think after you are in your recovery and you've had some clean time, I think when you work out into the community, I think it makes such a difference because you can actually see and help people that were in the same
Yes.
shape that
Yeah.
you were, and the community service aspect of it is so important.
Yeah, it's huge. And many old timers in recovery, and I'm one of those old timers now myself with 16 years clean and sober, will tell you that the 12th step is about carrying the message and service work. And let me take this opportunity also to say, for as many people, and there's 23.5 million people in the United States today in active recovery, and for as many people that are out there in active recovery, there are that many different paths to a successful recovery plan. So I want to make sure I say that to people because I needed a combination of things. I needed the meetings, I needed church, I needed to meet with a therapist and be involved in recovery and community support systems. But there are many different paths to a successful recovery for people.
Yes, there is.
So I don't want to sound like I'm only talking about the success of the 12 steps, but in the 12-step model that is the most successful treatment for people, the 12th step talks about carrying the message, and that service work is so vital for people to start to feel plugged into the communities again and start to feel like a valuable person, a valuable asset to that community again. So the 12th step isn't just about working those steps, but it's about restoring value to that person's self-esteem.
Absolutely. And I know that, and like we were just saying, when you see people after you've had some clean time and you go out into the community and you do service work, and I'm like you, AA, I mean, they've just, their foundation is just phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
they just have it.
Yeah.
And the underlying issue there was both of the men that started that were alcoholics.
Absolutely,
And they
yep.
seen what was needed, and they did something about it. And that's something that I want to ask you about too, is you were telling me before, because just as AA was started, they had to start somewhere with a foundation. And with the opiate crisis across America, and actually I believe it's worldwide. I just don't think it's just in America. I think it's everywhere. I just think we're seeing the blunt end of a lot of the results.
Yeah.
So you're working with Senator Jim Merritt,
That's correct, yeah.
and tell us about the bills that you're working on to help in the recovery side.
Okay. Well, I would like for this to be a call to action. Today's program to be a call to action. If you're out there watching today, and let me share this quick Just this quick
Yes.
story.
Go ahead.
A couple years ago, I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, helping my sister move back to Indianapolis. I'm so thankful to have her back home. But I was in Chattanooga the week of the shooting that occurred down there at the military post. And I remember going to Walmart and to the other area home stores helping my sister move, and I could hear this theme of people saying, well, they need to do more about mental illness treatment. They need to do more about substance abuse treatment, and they need to do more about gun control. And this call to action today for all of you listening needs to be, you are they. You are the ones that are sitting at home that are saying they need to do more. It's you. Get involved, get out there and get your hands dirty. And you can do that simply by just calling a senator's office and giving support to House Bill 1006 and 1007. 1006 is what we're trying to get passed for more funding to fight this opiate epidemic. Don't be one of those people on the couch that has a personal testimony where someone's died in your family, you've lost your niece, your nephew, your son, your daughter, before you get involved in this. Don't let this be something that becomes a personal testimony for you before you get off the couch and do something about this. You can get involved simply at the lowest level by just making a phone call to Senator Jim Merritt's office. We're going to share the phone number with you at the end of this broadcast, and just telling them that you support the work that's going on out there to try to fight this epidemic. This is a deadly epidemic. If you don't have a personal experience with this yet, you will. You will have a personal experience with this. Statistics tell us that no one is going to be exempt of this. So if you don't know about this firsthand yet, you will. Get involved and get out there and get your hands dirty. You can call Mental Health America. Our president, Steve McCaffrey, is the one that's at the State House every day fighting for the legislation to help these sick loved ones of yours. So call with support, call with email with supportive comments. If you want to get involved at some financial level to donate, if you want to get involved to volunteer, if you want to just be involved with your political party to get the people elected into office that support your views, I just want this to be a call of action instead of you sitting back and saying they need to do more. Be the they that you're talking about. Be the people that you're mentioning when you say they need to do more about that. That's you.
So many people that I talk with, and I'm sure you get these phone calls all the time, I think they do feel like that their hands is tied. Maybe, like you said, their son, their daughter, their husband, their wife.
Yep.
It affects everyone. And when you're in active addiction, it's just not you that is there. If you have children, your spouse, anyone, it affects so many lives.
Yes, that's correct. And there's a Division of Mental Health statistic that says at least 7 people, it's called the ripple effect. So at least 7 people are impacted by this ripple effect of an addictive personality in their immediate area. So it's not just the addict, and so that's why I'm so adamant about saying if you haven't been impacted yet, you will, because that ripple effect eventually will affect you. Maybe it's your neighbor's daughter. Maybe it's someone you go to church with son. Maybe it's somebody that's come home from the military with post-traumatic stress disorder, and now they're using substances to deal with the nightmares. This is going to impact you if it hasn't yet because of that ripple effect. So I want this to be a call of action to people. I really am very adamant about saying to you, please get involved with helping us fight this epidemic that's going on in our country.
And and it can change.
Absolutely.
I think some people just feel like, well, because when you're in it's awful. I mean, it is for the family members, for the person in addiction. It's a terrible, terrible.
Yes.
Situation and
yeah, I like the way you said it earlier when you said a lot of times and people that are close to this that are there with their family, and many times they don't know who to reach out to.
Right.
They feel frustrated about well, what do we do and who can we call, and here in the Connersville area you have the House of Ruth available, but across the state, that's what I'm doing now to affiliate those recovery residences. The Indiana Affiliation of Recovery Residents is what I'm the executive director of. Get online and Google INARR, get my email me with information. Email me with information about places that you might know that aren't doing the right thing to help people. We want to try to come together. The only way we're going to fight this is if we stand together with this. And if you've been wondering about who to call or who to contact to do something about it, let's pull together and pool our resources so that we can make it a better outcome for everybody.
Absolutely. And one thing that that I'm very excited about the House of Ruth now we have the big house, we call it, that they start out at, and then we have the little house, and then we have the transitional house that we just opened where 3 women are living in that, and one woman has her son, and another one is getting her son.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reuniting families. And lots of times in addiction, those ties are gone. I mean, you burn all your bridges.
Yes.
You have lost, anything that you have. People just don't wake up one day and I think I'll be in total addiction today. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my kids. I'm going to lose my job.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. It comes in sometimes it's subtle, but sometimes it comes in like a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's there, I mean, it's devastating. And sometimes people feel so hopeless and they feel like, I've lost everything, so there's no reason to stop. Mm-hmm. But there's every reason in the world. You're a prime example of that. There's every reason in the world. I mean, you have a son, 10 years old. You have a daughter, and I'm sure you've reunited with them. You have,
yes.
And tell us a little bit about how your family, how you work with them. And you told me the last time we spoke, how you're so involved in your son, in his athletics. And I mean, there's hope out there.
Yes. Well, and historically, the state of Indiana was not the only state to do this, by the way, but in 1907, there was a state eugenics law put in place. Governor J. Frank Hanley signed a state eugenics law that was making sterilization mandatory for pauperism and alcoholism in many of the state facilities. And I bring that point up to say, here we are 100 years down the road, and look at the progress we've made in treating people. Because in 1907, we thought the only way to deal with this was to put people in insane asylums and sterilize them. And I thank God I didn't have to get sterilized to get clean and sober.
Yes.
Because I had these wraparound services available to go to when I got out of prison. And there wasn't a lot available in prison yet 16 years ago, but I just really give a lot of credit to the Indiana Department of Corrections. I just left working for the DOC, and they've done a lot to change and improve the programming within the prison systems that wasn't available 16 years ago. And so I'm so thankful that I didn't have to go through that kind of thing to get clean and sober 16 years ago, and there's so many services available now. Now, to talk about the other issues, though, for example, the restoration that's taken place in my daughter's life. My daughter's 23, will be 24 in just about a week. My son's 10, and so if we still had that old mentality about lock them up and throw away the key, stick them in the insane asylum and sterilize them, I wouldn't have my 10-year-old son. I wouldn't be able to go and attend his basketball games, his taekwondo events, and watching him grow and become the young man that he's becoming. He wouldn't even exist if we wouldn't have come out of that old mentality of let's push him to the side, out of sight, out of mind, put him in the facilities, throw away the key. I'm an example that treatment works.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And when you were talking about that, because you actually have a prison, you go into the prisons, and is it, you call it a church service or a worship service or?
Well, it's sort of a little bit of everything. I just left working for the Department of Corrections. I was very fortunate, even with my arrest record. I had one of the wardens in the prison system, Brian Smith, that believed in me from the first time he met me. I was doing an inmate visit for the Sheriff's Department. I'm also a chaplain for the Sheriff's Conference. And I was contacted by a family to visit their son that had a heroin problem and was now locked up at the Plainfield prison. And so I met Brian Smith there. He asked me if I'd be interested in becoming a chaplain there. I started out there as a chaplain, kind of followed him then out to the Putnamville prison. And there's so many things going on that are exciting, even in the DOC, to try to change the mentality and the treatment model for addicts. And that includes the faith and spiritual background, the types of programming available within the housing units even is getting looked at differently now. The director of the programming for the state, Stephanie Spoolster, is just doing a fantastic job at changing that model to be more progressive so that the men that are locked up are getting more treatment and they're not just getting warehoused in the prison. But yeah, I still go to the prisons. I still do some church services. I still mail Bible studies to the churches. I was invited to speak a couple weeks ago in Sarasota, Florida with the Gospel Echoes program, which is a national prison ministry all across the country. And what a phenomenal vision they have to help offenders everywhere across the country. So I still am very active in that. It's my heart, and I have a heart of outreach to continue to try to reach people with those issues. And because people are not just physically sick from the addiction, they're spiritually sick, they're emotionally sick. And we've got to treat all of those illnesses for them if we can expect a positive outcome.
That's what I've always said. You know, used to, like you said, they would either push them to the side, they were treated for their physical dependencies, but their emotional, the root of the problem is what I call it. Unless you get to the very root of the problem, you know, and it's like we were saying, they just didn't wake up one day and decide, you know, today I think I'll just lose everything. It happens. It's a process, you know, through generations, through, I work with women that are in their third year or third generation of substance abuse, molestation, domestic violence, you know, and when you package all that into one person, there has to be something done to get their mind back, to get their heart back, and just to help them realize, you know, you don't have to live this way. And I'm like you, I'm a big component. God is a definite source to me. And I know that, you know, and with 12 steps and with the therapeutic communities and with, you know, all the programming, you know, I use Meridian, the intensive outpatient treatment, you know, relapse prevention. There's so much to offer. And then plus the AA, NA meetings, Celebrate Recovery. I mean, there's just so many avenues now that we can go to and that can help so many people. So if you had just a few minutes and you just wanted to tell someone that's watching today, you know, what is it? What's the key thing that from what you're doing now, how you're the executive director of NR, of everything, the families, the hurting people, what would you say to them today? If there's anything at all that could change their life, what would you want to tell them? I mean, just speak from your heart and just look at them and just, you know, because of everything you've been through and you know, 9 arrests, 7 felonies, prison, you know, losing your family, losing, you know, your dignity, you know, to let them know, you know, that through recovery, you can gain all that back.
Well, what I would like to say to people, I think, first and foremost would be don't give up hope. Even in your darkest hour, even at your darkest place, even in your biggest element of shame for your actions, don't give up hope. I gave up hope many times over, and it just gave me another excuse to use again, another substance to pick up, because it was a check all the above box for me. I needed everything I could get my hands on, became an addiction. I gave up hope. Don't give up hoping in yourself. God hasn't given up on you. And regardless of what your faith status is, I was atheist all my life until 16 years ago. And I say to people now that were like me, that say, I don't believe in God, or I would rather just believe in a higher power. I say, well, you know, okay, you know, because He's not stopped believing in you. He's always believed in you. And when you haven't believed in yourself, in those darkest hours when you've lost hope, He still believes in you. And there are still people in your support network, even though you've lost contact with them because of your actions and what you've done. There are still people out there that believe in you. You may not know it yet. You may need to get plugged into some of these community services to find some of those people that are going to believe in what you do and your mission. But don't stop believing in yourself. You were designed for better than the choices you're making. Start making some better choices and you'll see a better outcome.
That's right. I like that. Making better choices and you'll definitely see a better outcome. And one thing that Larry wanted to make sure that everyone got the information on was the phone number for Senator Jim Merritt.
Yes, let's please share that real quick.
Okay, if you want to contact Senator Jim Merritt at his office, the number is 317-232-9533. And that is for Bill
1006 and 1007,
Okay.
which are getting debated currently. So please call, because they're talking about all of the legislation and the wording of that legislation right now. So please call in with your support, your comments about some of the wording. Please do that. Also, go ahead, feel free to call the governor's office. Eric Holcomb has just become a huge advocate for working with the recovery community. Just call in with a supportive comment or an email saying, thank you. You know, my son, my daughter, my niece, my nephew, we just so appreciate the work that's being done to try to change this epidemic. You just wouldn't believe what that support, even though just those comments of support to those people that are out there on the front line getting their hands dirty trying to change this. So get involved.
Absolutely. I know that when people do get behind the senators and the congressmen and the House, the representatives and stuff, I mean, that makes such a difference because we do have a voice and we have to use it. If we don't use our voice, then everything's going to go to the wayside. But the more, the old saying, the squeaky wheel
Gets the grease.
Gets the grease. So if we squeak enough, we're going to get results.
Yes.
So, but it's just doing it and making sure, that our voice is heard. Because without that, someone, has always been out there and in the forefront, getting down and dirty, like you said. I mean, getting to the gutters. If we don't do that, nothing will ever change. And I'm a firm believer that things can change.
Yes,
I know
absolutely.
they can.
Yes,
I'm a prime example that they can.
Yes.
You're a prime example.
Yes.
So, and when people get discouraged and they think, well, it doesn't matter what I say, it does matter what you say. It does matter what you want. It does matter, and people need to hear your voice. And don't be afraid to call them and to email them, write them letters.
Absolutely.
Say something. So when we're doing something here, if people are doing something at the state level, and then the state level goes to the federal level,
right.
I mean, that's when changes come about.
Absolutely.
But somebody has to start somewhere.
Yep.
And we're actually getting ready to open a detox center here in Connersville. And, there's pros and cons, but I'm telling you, it's going to create jobs. It's going to, there's going to be more needed recovery housing. There's going to be, but there's things taking place. People are being aggressive in what they're doing. And without everyone working together, it can't get done.
Yep.
So I'm an avid believer that if we work together, and I just love you coming down today and taking the time out to do this and letting people know what's going on. I mean, House of Ruth is a part of the NR.
Absolutely, you're affiliated. We'd like to see more homes become part of the affiliation.
Yes.
If you're ready and willing to step up your level of care for your clients, please get a hold of me. I'll be glad to come out, do the site review, help you with other programs, plug you in to some of the things you might need to be able to get certified. So please get a hold of us if you want to become part of the affiliation Recovery Residences. I look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, and you can contact Larry through NR.
That's
like
correct.
He said, just Google his website and you can contact him, send him an email. He will help you in any way that he can. He's great with questions. I was pumping him with questions before we got here because we need information. We need information. So I appreciate everyone coming and listening, and just contact me if there's anything that I can do, any resources that you need, any information that you need. You can contact me at the House of Ruth anytime. We have a website now, houseofruthIN.org. Thank you for joining us.